and welcome to Rebecca. If you were here for my chatty weekly catch-up, you will recall that I walked to the library last week, and it's only like a 10 or 15 minute walk away from me, which is very handy and convenient, but also dangerous. So I was needing a big mental break, and I do tend to use my library as kind of a replacement for things people would normally go, like for that reward response of going out book shopping or any other sort of shopping to get their mind off things, to get a dopamine hit. I use my library that way, definitely. I'm often there 2 or 3 times a week just to browse books because I love wandering the stacks at my library. I love finding new stuff that I've missed. I try to do a full walkthrough of certain sections of the library multiple times a year. So I did basically that. I walked to my library and then spent a couple hours walking through the entire standard fiction section. And I shouldn't have gotten any books because I am already overloaded with BookTube Prize and my own TBR. I tried to make my TBR all books that were on my actual shelves for this month because of the BookTube Prize coming up. But I decided to pick out books anyway. So I did not have any plan in mind in doing that whatsoever. I just kind of picked up things that were really strongly in my mind as things I wanted to get to for the most part, except for one. And then I got home and realized I had grabbed a bunch of tiny books. So this is my tiny book, Try a Chapter. I completely decided to do that on the fly. So I've got 5 tiny books that I have already tried a chapter of. I'm not set up well to do like vlogs of that or recombine things. My camera does not allow me to set a frame rate. That means when you combine things back together, the audio and video don't quite line up, which is why when I do combine things, you'll notice it doesn't have my face in it because it doesn't line up. So anyway, I have already tried the chapters. So let's talk about what I picked up and what I thought. First, let's do like general impressions. I'm not going to give you big synopsis on any of these, really, other than my kind of first impression. The main problem with having done this, though, is that these are all books I wanted to get to, and this was not about eliminating them from wanting to read them at some point in the future. This was more to give me a priority of stuff I might want to get to more quickly, and specifically picking one book that I want to try and keep as my library book for the month, even though I'm already very much overloaded with what I want to get to this month. So the first one up is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata, and this was translated from the Japanese by Ginny Tapley Takamori. Now, I think almost all of BookTube has seen this. This has gone around like wildfire. I have read Sayaka Murata's other novel. I think she has a collection coming out or just out as well, but I have read Earthlings, and I was very mixed on that one. I liked the ideas that it had about kind of rejecting society or rejecting social roles that society places on us. I liked that, but the story took a very hard left at the end for me. And that wasn't a problem of the book. Once I got through that, I realized that the kind of rejection of social roles was not the point. It was kind of a larger point that was attempting to be made, but it didn't go where I wanted it to. And I think this one actually does much more go where I want it to in terms of addressing that rejection of social roles. So I think this one is going to be much more my sort of thing, and much less mixed in response. So what I got in the first chapters, this had a very standard kind of crisp, simplistic, minimalist Japanese writing style as usual. It is following our main character as she's working at a convenience store and she's living through the morning rush. I loved hearing how she is focused on the needs of the individual customers. She's focused on what she can do to help, basically. And she's focused on doing her job well, really, I think, is what I got out of the first part. Then she kind of regresses back and talks about the ways that as a child, she gives us a couple anecdotes of her not fitting into what society expected of her in terms of emotional response to things. There is a pretty strange response, I would say, to a dead bird, and it made sense to me the way it was laid out. So it doesn't follow what society expects, but it made sense to her. So, yeah, we'll come back around and I'll tell you what I thought. The next one was the one I knew the least about, and that is Strike Your Heart by Emily Nothomb. And this is another translated one. I did not intentionally grab translated stuff, but I just apparently am really into it. This is translated from French by Alison Anderson. And I love that cover. That was everything. I saw this was a Europa and pulled it out and was like, oh my god, that cover. I think I have seen this on maybe Russell from Ink and Paper blog. I did recognize the cover at least once I saw it, but adore that cover. It actually also reminds me of the music video from Phil Dell for their song Beside You, I think. I'll link the music video down below. But anyway, enough about the lovely cover. This is very tiny. This one's like a super short novella. I think that this is about a woman, her toxic relationship with her mother, going on to university and having a cold university professor who she has a relationship, and then as well her relationships with these friends that she's very close with. So my feeling is this is generally about one woman's relationship with other women, whether those be very toxic relationships or warm, loving relationships. So I think that's pretty interesting, and yet another very mundane premise. So not necessarily leaning into mundane, but that seems to be a trend here. So on reading the first little bit, and I did forget to mention, this one didn't have chapters. This one did have chapters. I tried to read around 10 to 15 pages of each book. So yeah, very short amount to get my impressions out of. So this one, I read the first section and it was completely the opposite of what I was expecting based on kind of the description. And then I realized the names were different. So in fact, the first section that I got was the mother, this toxic mother. And it was so interesting to be reading from the perspective because she's really unlikable, and I still enjoyed and wanted to read more. It was describing her as she's a student initially, and she's so terrible. She is delighting in being better than the ugly girls around her. She really takes pride in the fact that the most attractive guy likes her and everyone is jealous of her. She then kind of falls apart a bit because she enters into this relationship and loves the attention that he brings her, this really attractive guy, and then she gets pregnant and she feels like it's kind of ruining her life. And so I can see that as being the real turn to her being this toxic mother that's described in the synopsis. So yeah, I thought it was extremely compelling, and the characterization work was really great in just a few pages. So yeah, I definitely could get behind this one. So then I read The Marlow Murder Club by Robert Thorogood. And I think, if I recall, he is a TV writer. So similar to the Richard Osman situation, and this is definitely like British murder mystery. And we have a quirky lead character, so that is what drew me into wanting to pick this up. It is a new release that was on my anticipated releases. So this quirky character is a 70-something-year-old lady who lives alone and loves her independence in some sort of mansion in England. She likes whiskey and crossword puzzles and somehow gets wrapped up in the mystery, and that's what I knew of the plot going into this ahead of time. Reading the first, I think, couple chapters. The chapters are very short. There's a lot of text per page, I would say. So it's a lot of text per page. So the premise is her deciding to go skinny dipping in the river outside her mansion, and she's just kind of swimming around. And apparently, this is something she maybe normally does, and she is just bumbling about her day, really. And then she kind of goes near to her neighbor's house after hearing a sound, and then hears a gunshot. So after that, she rushes back, she tries to see what's going on, and then she rushes back to call the police. The police say they'll look into it, and she is up all night worrying and can't get anything done. And then she talks to the police again, and they haven't found anything, and so she starts looking into it. So that's pretty much all I got from what I read of this one. The next one is a weird title, for sure. It's I Want to Eat Your Pancreas by Yoru Sumino, and translated from Japanese by Nathan Collins. So this looks kind of like manga, but it's not. It's a novel. And this is a novel that was adapted into a film. And that film got raves as like being the most beautiful, incredible film. So the title does not give away for sure. And my impression of the story is this is going to be something like the trend with Sick Kids in Love that happens in YA a lot. So I don't know where it's going to fall on that line, but it's one that I have wanted to read the novel before I see the movie, so I haven't yet. And my impression of the plot is that this is generally about these two students, and I don't even know if you can see them here because the colors are very muted, obviously. So these two students who build a friendship around the fact that one of them is terminally ill with, I don't know if it's pancreatic disease or pancreatic cancer, but their pancreas is failing and they're going to die very soon. So I think there's a secret involved in that the student who is ill hasn't told everyone, and they get closer around the fact of having this secret together. So I don't know if it's romantic or just platonic, but in any case, this is surrounding that relationship becoming increasingly close over this secret information that this person is going to die. So when I read this, I read, again, the first 2 chapters of this. The first, like chapter 0 for some reason, is actually the reaction to kind of her funeral, her having died. And then we jump back in the next chapter to them being in the middle of their relationship, where we're seeing the inception of this phrase of her talking about wanting to eat his pancreas because there's this idea, this mythology, where people eat something they need to heal in themselves. And so it's her saying, yeah, I wish I could eat your pancreas to make myself better, basically. And then having a conversation over that. There's this really poignant conversation within there about how she doesn't change how she lives because she knows she's dying, because any of us could die tomorrow. And I absolutely thought that was so profound, the way it was expressed. So really emotional writing right out of the gate, even though it's simple prose. It's not like poetic, flowery, like prose. It is the actual philosophy of the words that's being said, not the words that are being used. So that was a very interesting way to find out about that one. I mean, I'm not too surprised considering the emotionalness of the movie that everyone has talked about. And then my last 5th book is The Seep by Chana Porter. This one has been on my radar. I think it's going to be absolutely fabulous. This is definitely speculative, much more so than any of these. This is going to be a weird one. And it's yet another teeny tiny, I think this one's just over 200. So I don't know how to express this one. It's all about an alien invasion, but a very easy one, I guess. So this talks about an alien invasion where they bring a utopia. It makes everything better for everyone. And so we're following this trans woman who, her wife is deciding that through the technology that the Seep, this alien collective, has brought, she decides she wants to transform herself and become a baby so that she can only remember or have lived as a person who exists with the Seep. She doesn't want to remember the time before, basically. And so that's a really interesting and novel concept, I think. If I remember right, it's not in the synopsis or anything, but I think that the trans woman character is meant to then raise her former wife as this child she's been transformed into. So that's really freaking weird. So this has blurbs from Jeff Vandermeer and China Miéville on it. So that's always a good sign for me. Yeah, general weirdness and quirkiness is my jam. So anyway, in terms of what I read, again, I read, I think, the first 2 chapters of this, or an intro and first chapter. So really, really quirky. The first bit is tips for throwing a dinner party at the end of the world. And then it has a page and a half of like guidance about that. And then part 1 is the softest invasion because it's an invasion without drama, basically, when this happens. So it's talking through the fact that this couple, this lesbian couple, have their 2 other lesbian couple friends come to have a dinner party, as they are kind of all in trepidation about what this invasion means for them. Nobody knows. They're watching the news and they're deciding kind of what to do, if they should do anything. So it's all that, and then the next little bit is this all having happened, the world having accepted it, and them again coming back with these friends and kind of talking about what they want in their life, joking about how things were before versus now after the seep. And so it has a certain really irreverent tone about these really weighty matters, I think. So those are the books that I tried a chapter of. Now, what does that all mean? Let's talk through what I rolled out. So the first one that I rolled out very quickly was the Marlow Murder Club. Sadly, I do want to read all these still. I didn't like knock any out from wanting to read, but I read about a chapter and a half. I stopped way before my 15 pages or so. I just knew I didn't want to read this. So it's very, very boilerplate murder mystery. The character seems great, but it wasn't like moving fast. It wasn't gripping me. There wasn't anything like special pulling me in. So that one's on hold for now. Then Strike Your Heart. This one sounds incredibly interesting. I think this is probably going to be very, very soon I'm going to want to get to, but I think it had all just characterization, and I don't feel like I am wanting a totally character-focused book in this way. Between the writing style and the harshness, I guess, of the toxicity, I don't think I am wanting that right now. Then I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. Again, it's about how heavy it was. I think the emotional content and philosophical content is just not what I want right now. So this one, beautifully written though. Then that puts it between these two. So The Seep and Convenience Store Woman. I think I'm going to have to, and this was like impossible choice. Both of these are quirky and I as I said, kind of irreverent ways of talking about these heavier topics and not taking it too seriously in doing that. So they had really sort of similar tones, but very different styles. So I think I'm going to return The Seep. I might actually keep both of them and see if I can get to The Seep, but I think I'm going to return The Seep. So that's going on the out pile. And I'm going to go for Convenience Store Woman. This one has just had so many raves. I think the tone was exactly what I was looking for. I didn't really want to put it down when I was reading it. It has really rapid fire chapters, and I just love the character voice. So yeah, I think, and I've read this author before and know I enjoy the writing at very least. So yeah, we're gonna go with Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata as my library book pick from this tiny book, Try a Chapter. So thanks so much for watching. Have you read any of these books is the question. Let me know what you thought of them and if I picked wrong. Thanks.